Welcome to Epilogue Podcast, the show where we discuss some stuff that happened on a different show ages ago which nobody really cares about anymore.
Hi, I'm Portponky.
And I'm LeBloc.
Today, we're discussing Farscape, Season 1, Episode 12, Rhapsody in Blue. Team Moya visit some Delvians who have ulterior motives for Zan's mind powers. I tried to make that sound mysterious.
Good job.
How did you find this episode?
I liked it a lot.
You did?
I did.
That's okay. You're allowed to like it.
I know there aren't explosions and a whole lot of exploration in the characters, but I like this idea of really powerful beings who can implant memories and how scary that is and how powerful that is, and they could destroy you basically, but then Team Moya, those aren't their targets. Zan is, but they could totally ruin everyone's lives. They have that power. They just choose not to exercise it.
They weren't very good at using their powers, though.
No, they're a bunch of scrubs.
As you may have guessed, I'm not the biggest fan of this episode.
Because they were so terrible at taking advantage of their awesome power?
Not really, although now that I think about it, that's usually the sort of thing that I get wound up by. Whenever you introduce some amazing set of powers, you start to think, well, what are the rules? What are the limits of what they could achieve with these powers? And you start to think, well, they're not doing this very well. They could easily make the crew much more distracted or much more absent.
They could win instantly, you would think, if they could force those thoughts.
It seemed like they lacked imagination a little bit, distracting Aaron with a broken pulse rifle and making Rigel small.
Well, they said... That made me laugh because they said attack them, use their hopes and fears against them. So is Rigel's greatest fear being a tiny thing? Which I could see being true.
I guess his fear is that he is smaller than everyone else.
And that people don't pay attention to him and that he's not important.
He's kind of almost disabled in a way.
Yeah, essentially.
So, yeah, that's his fear. And then they exaggerated it by making him super small.
And Erin's gun breaking, that seems silly. But she is a peacekeeper and they are trained for battle and for being useful. And so to lose that, I could see that being her greatest fear.
So they have absolutely no plan when a gun breaks.
Yep.
There's no training in place for what to do if you damage your weapon.
None at all. They don't have time to teach that.
Why not just make them see a peacekeeper patrol ship or something? You see? Then they're going to vamoosh.
Delvians aren't creative. That's their problem.
Yeah, that's what I said. They lack imagination.
I did enjoy seeing Joffrey's giant head, though.
His swollen bee-sting head.
I expected him to fall over.
Because he's top-heavy?
Yes.
God. That was disappointing to me, because Dargo he's on the cusp of working it out, and then suddenly he sees Jotham, and he's not like, well, that's clearly fake.
But they can put these visions in your head that are so convincing, you wouldn't be equipped to realize it's fake. For us, it's obvious that that's not really John's lover. How could she be there, etc. But then they could put all these memories and things to make it seem real.
The one with John was more convincing, but Dargo, he he had worked it out. He was asking Pilot about Delvian transmissions. He thought, they're messing with us. And then suddenly he sees his son getting taken away by a commando. Okay, it's concerning, but at that direct point, he was questioning whether they were seeing things they shouldn't be seeing. That should be a confirmation for him. I guess.
He can't take that chance, though. What if it is Joffrey?
It's not Joffrey, though. Why would Joffrey be on Moya?
He doesn't know.
Plus, there's another bigger problem. How old was Joffrey there?
42.
Okay, then there's no problem. Wait, that's older than Dargo.
Yep, he was in an accelerated time planet.
Oh, not again.
And he aged faster.
It's typical. Well, Dargo's been in prison for, I think he said, he's been in there a while. Anyway. Yeah, that was the kid Jotham from his memory chip thing. So shame on Dargo for not realizing, although he's not the smartest guy, but he's not that stupid.
Yeah, he is.
And here's another thing. Dargo saw Jotham in the commando, but when John was seeing his wife, someone was playing that part.
Yes.
But no one was playing the part of Jotham or the commando.
How do you know?
Because they had no way of getting to Moya.
As far as you know.
It seemed that way.
It did. And they didn't bother to explain that. But if they can implant memories, I don't see why they can't mess with your vision.
But then why did someone need to play the part of John's wife?
Because she touched John, and so they needed to replicate the physical sensation. Dargo never touched Jotham.
But Rigel was touching his chair, and Aaron was touching a pulse rifle.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense.
Plus, if they can full sight, why can't they full touch? Although, plausibly, that would be a determination that you couldn't make just by saying, well, they're both senses. So fair enough. Okay, so initially I was going to say I didn't mind the stuff with all the powers, but you've now convinced me that I also don't like the episode because of that stuff.
I like the idea more than the execution. I think that carried me through. The idea of altering memories and beings that are so far beyond our intelligence is really interesting to me. The idea of we don't try to communicate with snails because they're so far below us. And then what if we met an alien species that thought of us that way, that we were so primitive? That's not what was happening here, but it's kind of a version of that.
I do like the idea of an enemy who can deceive you at will. That would be a very difficult enemy to fight. That's sort of straying into Philip K. Dick territory, which is an excellent territory, and I would recommend reading Philip K. Dick's books if you're interested in extremely depressing and dark sci-fi that questions the nature of reality at every turn. The initial reason I didn't like this one much is because first of all, it had no explosions.
That's always a downer.
It did have a lot of nice set pieces and some cool squid plant things.
I really liked those things. How they looked.
Disgusting.
Yeah. They were wriggling around and had an interesting texture.
I liked John's impassioned speech about how every moment is amazing. What I didn't like is that Zan went crazy bonkers, and whenever the odds get too stacked, it always diffuses the tension for me.
I didn't like the resolution, how it came down to, hey, believe in yourself.
I guess that's the problem. If it's a plot line where, for example, Moya's going to explode in an hour, so they have to figure out before the end of the episode how to stop Moya exploding. You know Moya's not going to explode because that'd be the end of the show. So that's fine. You can accept that and still have fun finding out how they stop Moya from exploding. And if the odds are a bit less, for example, John will, lose a finger. It's not, then maybe he will, maybe he won't. It's exciting to find out what happens. But this was in the awkward place where Zan went crazy mad. So you think, well, she's going to be fixed by the end of the show, but the mechanism was obviously just going to be psychic brain stuff. So finding out how wasn't that enthralling.
Yeah.
When it gets too predictable, I find it gets boring. Not Farscape in general, but just TV shows.
You know, this episode started with a premise that's more interesting than what they did, where Moya acted independently and sought a distress signal. That's really interesting, how it could go into Starburst all on its own.
She's an individual sentient being.
I know, and that's unique in the show, and I like when they explore that.
That was completely dropped after the first 2 minutes, though.
It all led us to something less interesting, unfortunately. But John did make a chicken noise and then wondered about what the translator did.
Presumably nothing?
Well, it's an interesting translation challenge, because a chicken noise, it means, oh, you're afraid to do something. So then, is there a universal alien that makes a distinct noise that people know means you're a coward? You can't just do the noise.
It could do.
Well, it could, but it doesn't properly. That's not a proper translation. You don't get the meaning that he's calling her a coward.
Sadly, it's really unclear from Zan's reaction whether she heard a translation or not, although I'd lean towards not, because she turns around and says that John's brain is stupid.
The moment didn't lead to anything, but I did like John making the noise and then being curious about it.
Was that the highlight of the episode for you?
Actually, yes.
There were a lot of people in this episode that were completely insane. True or false?
False. A lot of people who were saying they were completely insane.
Yeah, that's the thing. You can't say, hey, don't listen to me, I'm completely insane, and then just spool off a load of good advice, and then continue doing sound labor that helps the community.
I was really struggling to figure out what I was supposed to understand from that.
The only issue he seemed to have was that he couldn't control the sort of tone of his voice very well.
He couldn't stop himself from saying, "I'm insane." That was what made him insane.
That was the full extent of his insanity. He introduces himself as an insane person.
Yep, that's it.
That's unfortunate. It's going to give really bad first impressions.
Well, that way people don't expect much of him, and then he spouts off this reasonable advice, and then people think, hey, this guy isn't so insane after all.
No, they think this guy doesn't know what insane means. He's clearly quite sane. And
he's clearly crazy.
His mental faculties seem pretty much unaffected.
He was doing research for a role in a Delvian play he was writing about insanity.
By telling people he was insane?
Yeah.
Is that research?
That's his...
It's like method acting, it's method research.
It's method research, but I never said he was a good actor, or a good playwright.
Or researcher.
Or researcher. Or farmer.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure those trees were not growing.
Was that part of the insanity, that he was not a good farmer?
Loads of people are not good at farming.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of rude.
It's a catch-22 sort of thing, though. You can't acknowledge that you're insane in a sane manner.
That is the precise original Catch-22.
Yeah, that's why I used it. But did
Good
I say
job.
it's like a quite? No, yeah, it is a catch-22 situation.
Yeah, it is, exactly.
It's literally the exact same thing. Zan went insane as well,
I guess.
where she just seemed a little more giggly and
Yeah.
sort of hinted at murder now and again.
She was more aloof about hinting at murder. Maybe that's Delvian madness.
Her eyes turned red as well, although she had a biological explanation for that, which meant nothing.
Something about madness.
Why are people depicted as mad? They always talk whilst lying down.
It's an easy visual reminder to the idiot viewer.
I'm not kidding. People who are mad often talk while lying down on TV.
I'm not kidding either.
It's such a weird, specific thing, but I can think of several other instances.
You can't have an insane person standing upright. That's crazy.
It's way too sane.
It's crazy saying.
They've got to lie down and sort of roll around whilst they're talking. Actually, that is pretty mad. If I was talking to someone and they were rolling around on the ground or on a sofa or something.
Yeah, she was using the dead bad farmer guy as a pillow.
Yeah, well, he had a bit of a gut to him. He's probably a bit squishy.
I didn't say he was a bad pillow, but
Okay.
you generally shouldn't use dead people as pillows out of respect.
I assumed that was some sort of funeral ceremony thing. Maybe she was just being incredibly rude and extremely disrespectful. That actually would lend credence to her claim of insanity.
Except we didn't know that. I am
Yeah.
not well versed in Delvian funeral rites.
So we don't know. Maybe that's normal. Maybe everyone else there was really awkward and wanted to say, hey, really, you shouldn't be lying on that guy like a pillow. He's dead.
Or maybe
This
that's
is a
just what you
funeral.
do
Yeah, who knows?
at a Delvian funeral. Maybe people were mad. Hey, it's my turn to use him as a pillow. You've had your turn. Get up.
At the end, John heroically chops down the tree.
He cannot tell a lie.
More like a branch. That came off as extremely underwhelming.
Yeah, did he even cut through it? I can't remember now.
I don't think so. He had a little hatchet. He should have had a big axe. Don't give the hero a tiny little hatchet.
And then let him finish the job.
Yeah, you want him to put big arm swings, smash through the tree.
And don't have him struggle to cut through a tiny branch.
I have cut down trees in my life. I know it is actually very difficult, and I wouldn't be surprised if he struggled to get through a reasonably thick branch with a little hatchet. But that doesn't look good on TV. Give him a big old axe or a chainsaw. It's Farscape, give him a chainsaw.
I don't care about fidelity to actually cutting down a tree. I want him to succeed in a few swipes to punctuate the moment.
Yeah, they kept saying it was a symbolic tree that symbolized something or other.
Yeah, and how it was twisted and bad, and this is the end, but then it wasn't the end because he didn't cut it down.
So yeah, cutting it down was a symbolic gesture, but he didn't even do it, so it just comes off as sort of half-hearted. I will chop down your tree, but this is exhausting.
This is too much work.
I'll cut it down, and I'll leave the hatchet lying around so someone else can finish the job. And Zan and Talene had a staring match. And Zan leveled up to level 10 and obtained a new character perk of protection against the dark arts. You can tell I loved this episode. I think it was okay. It probably sounds like I hated this one. On rewatch, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, but I find it a little on the boring side and a little underwhelming.
It's both of those. But it does have mind sex.
Yeah, they talked about sex quite a lot in this episode.
It even opens with a shot of some intimate times.
something annoyed me about that scene. Oh, well, although it's explainable because it was a dream, so well, you can explain anything that happens in a dream with that excuse.
Yeah, it wasn't a pure flashback. It was filtered through John's dream state.
He had the ring and the fizz.
Yeah, he poured it at midnight, and so it's been sitting there.
It wasn't. Yeah, he must have got out and done that just recently because it was still all fizzy.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
But you can't open a bottle of champagne without making a bit of a pop.
Luckily, when he goes to the bathroom, he makes a pop, so she didn't suspect anything.
So he'd just been to the bathroom. That's very romantic.
Yeah, the champagne was stored in the cistern. And then he held the 2 glasses and the ring behind his back with one hand. He's very good at balancing things. And that's how he always walks when he's naked, so she didn't suspect anything then either.
But he brought the bottle through.
Oh, the bottle was there too?
Yeah.
That was tucked between his legs.
So, okay, that's all very believable.
All solved.
It was just too conveniently placed. And he tucked the ring away, but still had the champagne out, so he had to explain that later.
They have champagne every morning. That's how they start their day. Not big coffee drinkers. They drink champagne.
That is a sign of severe alcoholism.
Mimosas. They have mimosas every morning.
This is a minor thing. I don't actually care. It's just whenever anything is too perfectly laid out like that.
I didn't like the ring being, I mean, all of it is bad, but just the ring bothered me enough. It was out there in the open. It was already open itself, the case. It's bad. But then, as you said, it's a dream. So then that nullifies all of that. A lot of stuff in dreams is convenient and doesn't make sense upon reflection.
Yeah, I'm just tempted to, when I see a scene like that, I think, how did it get to that state? What happened before this? Obviously, John was walking around out of bed, getting champagne out of the fridge, secretly popping it, and all that stuff. Do you have a quote from this episode that you'd like to share with us?
I like my wives pregnant and my ships cold to the touch. That way my feet stay warm and my slumber is uninterrupted. What does that mean? I don't get it.
Well, because the ship was warm, e.g. living ship, it woke him up, so his slumber was interrupted.
Well, how do his feet stay warm?
Because when your wives are not pregnant, it gives you cold feet.
Okay.
I don't know.
I laughed regardless, even though I didn't understand it, because it was vaguely misogynistic.
It seemed pretty misogynistic, but in a kind of Rigel way.
Yeah, I could get a sense that, all right, he's saying something that is not good, but I cannot suss it out.
I think it's deliberately confusing because, well, for one thing, pregnancy and sleeping well do not mix.
Right. I like the contradiction. That's probably part of why I laughed.
It's actually quite a clever line in that it really doesn't make that much sense, I guess.
It's really good. They slipped it in there and didn't bother to explain it.
John just high fives him for having multiple wives,
Yeah.
which is quite funny.
That was another touch I liked. I wouldn't expect John to do that, but he's starting to enjoy himself and allow himself these moments. He's always had little jokes that he said to himself for the benefit of himself, but here he's interacting in a way that isn't just for him, because I'm sure Rigel likes a good high five.
Does this mean John taught them all how to high five?
Yep, right after he taught Dargo how to shake hands.
Or maybe a high five is a universal thing, which it wouldn't be because not every species has arms, I guess.
When a species becomes advanced enough, they inevitably learn to high five.
And then when they get even more advanced, they learn to high five with their minds.
Yep,
And that's the first level of Pa'u.
exactly.
Top fact. Did you notice that Alex and Lorana were the same actress?
Yes, I didn't. Oh, do you mean before the melding when she reveals herself? Because I didn't before that moment.
Yeah, I meant when it's revealed that she's been pretending to be Alex.
Once it's revealed, yes, I realized. Oh, it's the same actress. That's a good thing they did there.
I'm a bit of a slow guy because I did not notice it was the same person. I just thought it was quite a good CGI blend effect.
Well, the Delvian makeup really masks a person's true face. I bet I wouldn't even recognize the actress Roseanne
Virginia
without yes, her without her makeup, especially if she had a wig on, so I wouldn't even know that. I mean, a shaved head would be easier to figure out, but yeah, I doubt I would see it.
She shaved her head for this role, and when filming this episode, she was annoyed to find out that other Delvians have hair.
That is annoying. I don't blame her.
Yeah, that is kind of annoying because shaving your head's quite a big undertaking.
Especially if a show becomes successful and you have to continue doing that.
Yeah, you'd have to be bald for years. I mean, you could grow it out in between, but it seems like it would almost be better just to be bald for a very long time.
She doesn't have a choice. She has to be bald for the role.
Yeah. It's hard to play a bald person when you have hair, unless they use one of those
bald caps look terrible.
You can always see the seam.
And their head always looks misshapen because it is. With the bald cap. Not that their underlying head is misshapen. I mean, it could be. But
shall we move on to the next episode?
Yes, but to be clear, I'm not anti-misshapen heads.
That's fine. I am.
Okay.
Just kidding. The next episode is called The Flax. And guess what?
It's about the flax.
Well, I can't reveal if it is or is not about the flax.
My money is on yes.
Yeah, I would also bet yes. But it is the last rearranged episode.
So then we're good from then on out.
Apart from one other one, yes. So this is the last time we reveal the next episode name before watching it.
Aw.
We can keep doing it, but we're not gonna.
That's too bad. I will miss making fun of the bad titles.
Well, there's plenty more bad titles to make fun of. We'll just do them in the episode that the title is for, rather than the preceding episode.
But I like making fun of a title when I have no context.
Let's go.
Okay, I'm going.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.